Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. A former Soweto rioter is now kicking up a storm in South Africa's dusty Kalagadi Manganese field. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer visited the Kalagadi Manganese mine and is here to tell us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, Kalagadi Executive Chairperson Daphne Mashile-Nkosi dodged bullets in 1976 and is dodging naysayers in 2011. What's her background?
You know, it's interesting that a couple of weeks ago we were also in the Kalahari, and there was also an activist there, and that was Saki Makazoma, who had been in Robben Island incarceration for 10 years and came along to the Kalahari and started this open cast mine. Now down the road we have Daphne Mashile-Nkosi, who was from the class of 1976. On that historic day, you know, June 16, 1976, she was dodging bullets and running away from tear gas because the students in Soweto were on the rampage, and she went into quite a political era at the start, and she was involved in trying to protect detainees and help their parents to get access to detainees. But she felt she came to the end of the political road and needed to go into business. She remembered her mother bringing up these 4 kids on a shoestring and always having to buy things and sell things. And she realized, look, in this world, this real world, you've got to buy things and sell things. But what she is doing here is quite remarkable. Because I think that, you know, to have an integrated project, it's all very well having an open cast manganese mine, and we see that the 2 other operations there are going to be open cast. This is an underground mine, and this is not only a mine, this is a beneficiation project. Now, you know, we've been hearing the government call out, give us beneficiation, and most people have been saying, look, there's not a real business case. Typically of this woman, she's saying, look, I can get $5 a ton for manganese ore. That's great. Why shouldn't I go for $1,310 a ton for ferromanganese, high carbon ferromanganese? So she's sold on this whole beneficiation story. Of course, obviously, she's got to get that smelter going down in the Eastern Cape. And what we saw, and we went down a kibble to 281 meters underground. Of course, I don't like going in kibbles. That's normally a shaft sinking issue. But we got down there, went through the tunnels and realized that, you know, they're putting a lot of store on safety and health. Because what really they wanted us to see is that there had been a hole through of the main shaft to the ventilation shaft, and therefore there was much more ventilation through the inner workings, and also there were 2 escape routes. And we know that great celebrated Chilean mine disaster. You know, why did the world watch those miners? Because there was only 1 escape route, which there should never be. You know, in a mine there should always be 2 escape routes. They've made sure early that this will be the case. But when you go on surface and you see what she's building up there, you know, 53% through the sinter plant. So we know that the Kalahari manganese is very rich. You know, it's got about 37%, 38% her particular manganese ore, just the raw ore of manganese content. But what she does is she takes it to surface and she processes it. It's called a sinter processing. And she moves that content then to 47%, 48%. Then she puts it on a train and she exports quite a lot of it like that, but she would also send it down by train to the Kucha port, you know, the industrial development zone in the Eastern Cape, where there's capacity, where she secured energy, she secured electricity from Eskom to smelt. Now what she wants to do is take that 700,000 tons, and we're looking at total mining of 3 million tons of ore. She will then process that to 2.4 million tons of sintered ore. Then she'll take 700,000 tons of that, send it down by rail to the Eastern Cape IDZ Kucha, and she will turn that into 380,000 tons of high carbon ferromanganese. And of course there's a deep water port there, and her plan is to send it off. One thing we observed, that she better get going on calling for tenders for the smelter, because she hasn't called for tenders for the smelter yet. It's still got to be constructed. But she has been dealing with doubting Thomases, you know, from the start. I mean, people told her you wouldn't get off this ground, you know, women don't get involved in this, and she's really proved the naysayers wrong. And I think that we are a doubting Thomas. I mean, we're looking at her and saying, look, you should have called the tenders for the smelter by now. You should have awarded the contract. She said, we're going to do it, and I'm going to come out on time. She's talking about the 3rd quarter of 2012 when, you know, the ore will be coming out of the mine, will be processed to sinter, It'll go down to the Eastern Cape, and she says the plant will be ready for it to be turned into high carbon ferromanganese. Now that's quite a tough ask, but I think she has been used to tough asks.
Now, you touched briefly on the milestones that she's reached. Can you tell us more about whether the project is on track for that 2012 commissioning?
Look, the part of the project that we saw, the mine, in very good shape, probably slightly ahead of schedule, 2 weeks or so. We looked at the sinter plant going great guns on surface. You know, they've had to power, because when you deal in that Kalahari, I mean, it's another story. Those moving sands, they go down 12 meters, 15 meters. So how do you build on them? So, you know, they've got to put down 1,200 piles. I think they've put down about 800 piles. They're putting the sinter plant on top of that. And there's a lot to see. You know, it's quite impressive out there when you think that this is a greenfield project. There was nothing there. And, you know, you've got to take your hat off to Daphne, Mashile-Nkosi, Kalagadi executive chairperson. She's the type of woman who doesn't take no for an answer, you know, and she just gets going. And they call her Mama D on site because they see her as a mother figure. And she, you know, you ask her what her management style is, and she's not shy to tell you autocratic. You know, she does move around that site with quite a lot of autocracy. And she's got a shareholding. She's got skin in the game. You know, of the 100% of the shares, she and other women, black women mainly, own 40% of this. The state, through the Industrial Development Corporation, owns 10%. The other 50% belongs to the steel maker and now miner ArcelorMittal. So her timing in selling that 50% to ArcelorMittal was impeccable. You know, she brought in more than $430 million for that 50% at just before the 2008 meltdown. I mean, it was remarkable. She was then able to distribute 10% of that money because, you know, people go into black economic empowerment ventures, they often don't see cash. She saw cash. She saw cash early, but she was astute because she took 10% out, didn't start spreading this cash too early, plowed the rest into the project to maintain her 40% and the 40% for these black. But even the distribution turned some poverty-stricken people in the Northern Cape into millionaires overnight. So, you know, we've already seen cash flow. We've now got to see ore flow, sinter flow, ferromanganese flow. And, you know, you can see that this woman keeps an eye on everything. You know, she jumps into that kibble with us. She's the chairman. She goes down there and she looks everywhere. And she knows every little part of this mine, where the the electrical infrastructure is, where the underground logistics is, the transport section, and where the manganese is. You know, she's kept a very close finger on this, and she goes down regularly. And her more than 80, I think her mother's 83. This mother has been the big influence in her life. Brought up these 4 kids. She was the youngest on a shoestring. I think her mother had a stand at 3 or something. She's going to fly her mother down there, and I hope she doesn't take her down that kibble, but she probably will. Her mother, even at 83, is still sweeping out her own house, cleaning everything. She lives alone, does her own thing. So, you know, Daphne's a bit like that. She's had a tragedy because her husband, Stanley, who was a Robben Island prisoner for 10 years as well, and was part of this project with her, he died tragically. You know, he was a golfer, and he was going to take part in the King's Cup, but he had a pinched nerve. And he went into hospital to have this treated, and the report she got was he's died. He choked on his blood. I mean, this was unbelievable. So she is having to have inquests, and I think the judge moved the decision from negligence, hospital negligence, to gross hospital negligence. So it's quite a tragic thing along the way. So she's had tragedies along the way, but it hasn't stopped her. She's very, very focused. And I think that, when you talk to the project managers on site, if you talk to Ivan Walker, you know, the contracts manager for Grinica LTA, he'll tell you, look, hold thumbs, but we're slightly ahead of schedule on this mining operation. we've done it without any fatalities, with very minor injuries. And she insists on the safety. I mean, she berates the people on the site because she says, I'm a woman, I give life, I don't take life away. I don't want any life taken away. So she insists on all these things and as she goes through there. And because she's so close to the people and she's known as Mama D, they seem to take her seriously. So hopefully this is going to be a big success story, of a women's startup and a greenfield site. The biggest integrated manganese project we've had in 30 years, and she's had no knowledge of mining before this, and she's got stuck in, and she gets deeply involved.
Now, she's also looking at having a complement of 50% women. How's that going?
I said to her, look, that's a tough ask. A lot of the things she does, it sounds, the doubting Thomases come out. How are you going to do this?
A bit over the top.
Yeah, a bit over the top. But when you look at what she's done, if you look at corporate level, she's got a black woman CFO. She's got a woman human resources head. She's got a lot of other women at corporate level. Then if you go at operational level, well, you think, well, that's where it's going to stop. But then suddenly, you see the mine manager. She's a woman as well. So, and she's a very pleasant mine manager, I must say, Vuyokazi Nonso. And I don't think she's one to mess around with because she's a karate champion. So you don't mess with her. And it was quite interesting seeing how enthusiastic she is about this job. She's always been in production and operation, but now she's involved in design, she's involved in safety, she's involved in output planning, and she seems to really relish that. And then, of course, as you drive around, Daphne, Mashile-Nkosi will say, look over there, there's a woman security person. She's keen on pointing out all the women on the site. So she says, look, it's a target. My target is to get to 50% of women. I'm battling to do that, but that's what I want to do, and I'm going to keep going on it.
And how many people is she likely to employ when it's
Yeah,
completed?
she says 2,200 people. That's all told. But the spin-off from that is going to be great. For the area of the Northern Cape that we're in, you can see the wealth generation starting to lift. There's quite a few manganese startups. There are also quite a few established manganese mines there. Then you've got the iron ore activity quite nearby. And you're beginning to see the wealth creation. You can see the spin-off. You can see, there's greater road development. There's fuel stations, there's shops. There's, that sort of spin-off is hugely important. And it does come about. You can't even measure it. It's like the invisible hand. It just pops up, everywhere when you least expect it, and that's what's happening out there.
And then one final question. With her vested interest of 40% in this company, I suppose she's not really looking towards nationalisation. Yeah,
look, she doesn't want to speak out on nationalisation, probably for political reasons. She's a little bit hesitant, but when you say to her, would you allow the state to come along and take this mine? She said, oh, well, I wouldn't like that to happen now, but, if they paid me, well, I said, no compensation. No, I wouldn't like that. So obviously she doesn't want to speak out too strongly in public, but, when you look at her performance, she's just an out-and-out entrepreneur, coming from nowhere. So it would be an anathema for any N-word to start crossing her threshold. But I think that for political reasons, she doesn't want to come out too strongly, especially on camera, because we had the video cameras on her. And she was saying, look, no, I don't want them to take my mine. I mean, I'm building this. You've got to have a champion. As you can see, you've got to have. So obviously she's dead against mine nationalisation, and the way she performs, it's just a living example of the complete opposite of mine nationalisation.
Well, thank you so much for that insight, Martin. We wish them all the best.
Thanks, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insights into what's happening in the mining world.